Can you be one of Hollywood's ultimate tough guys, with a career in which you sustained 3 broken collarbones, 25 fractured ribs, several torn ligaments in your left ankle, multiple knee surgeries, broken fingers, arms, and legs, and also be an avid stuffed animal collector, even including your favorite stuffed wolf wearing a custom-made suit in your wedding party? You can, though whether or not a movie fan knows your name perhaps depends on how hardcore of a cinephile they are. But if they grew up watching movies in the 80s and 90s, they definitely know the face of martial artist, stuntman, and actor Al Leong. Throughout those 2 decades, Leong became known to a generation of film fans as Hollywood's go-to henchman in a number of classic action movies. Even when his screen time was brief, as was often the case, he was still memorable thanks to his recognizable Fu Manchu mustache and long hair, which he originally grew out after seeing the Beatles perform on The Ed Sullivan Show as a kid. Leong, who was born in 1952, led an amazing life even before getting involved with movies. A top kung fu student and instructor who won multiple martial arts tournaments in the mid-1970s, and then came out of retirement in 1980 to win the World Silver Cup Martial Arts Championship. He was also an accomplished Chinese lion dancer, a founding member of a lion dance team called the Four Cs. But it was while owning and operating a custom car paint shop in LA that Leong was convinced by a friend to get into grip work for local film and TV productions, which he did for a few months until some of the filmmakers on the sets he was employed took note of his martial arts skills and at first asked him to help choreograph fight scenes, before finally just recruiting him for on-camera roles. With SAG card now in hand, Leong made brief appearances in TV shows such as Greatest American Hero, Knight Rider, Magnum P.I., The Fall Guy, and T.J. Hooker, before moving into more fame with a string of small roles in iconic genre films of the 80s, including Big Trouble in Little China, Lethal Weapon, and Die Hard, for which he'll always be remembered as the chocolate bar-loving terrorist in Hans Gruber's gang. Perhaps Leong's biggest role, and certainly one of the rare instances where he did not just play a villainous henchman, was 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where he portrayed an arguably somewhat lovable version of Genghis Khan. It's a testament to Leong's toughness that, despite a challenging period in 1993 in which he fought and beat brain cancer, he continued to work throughout the illness and through the rest of the 90s, with roles in films like Rapid Fire, Hot Shots Part 2, Last Action Hero, Beverly Hills Cop 3, and former failure to franchise entries The Shadow and Godzilla. Interestingly enough, Leong was originally slated to appear in Lethal Weapon 4, playing a different character than he had in the original Lethal Weapon, and even rehearsed a major fight scene with Danny Glover for weeks, before filmmakers finally decided his appearance would perhaps confuse audiences, given that he had died in the first film, and so the scene was cut. Leong took the news well, acknowledging the potential confusion and the fact that there might not be a need for another fight scene in a film already dominated by villain Jet Li. By that point in his career, Leong was already enough of a consummate professional to know sometimes scenes get cut. And besides, he was still clearly a favorite of the movie's producer, Joel Silver, working with him on at least 8 of Silver's productions, not just the ones already mentioned, like Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, and Last Action Hero, but another cinematic henchman role for Leong that, even early in his cinematic career, already established him as part of Silver's repertory company, as the movie was populated by Silver regulars, even if it didn't quite hit the successful highs of some of the other films they appeared in. The year is 1988, and Silver Pictures and Lorimar Film Entertainment are ready to give the first lead role to an already beloved co-star of one of Hollywood's most popular franchises and one of the previous year's biggest action hits, and in the process hopefully launch a new above-title star and action franchise with Action Jackson.
0.
Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And this is Chris. And it was just 4th of July in America. It was just Canada Day up here. And I got to ask you, Trev, barbecue. How do you like your ribs?
Good, nice.
Oh, you're not going to answer. Okay.
Oh, I don't have. Oh, okay. Oh, you. What if you didn't even remember that was part of the movie, and you were just legitimately asking?
Yeah, I was like, I like mine. Not too well done, but I do like a lot of charcoal. It is nice to
I do like them slathered in sauce so much that I look like like a wild beast man after eating them. I like them so sloppy that you feel embarrassed to eat them in front of your significant other. That's
it's funny you say that because I know You have regular wing nights. I have regular wing nights with
Oh,
friends or whatever. I'm not like a huge wing saucy guy. I like more of a dry rub a lot of the times.
Oh, really? I love sauce. But...
You do. Because, okay,
Yeah.
so I have like, maybe it's not a phobia, but I don't really like a messy face and hands of sauciness. And let me tell you, do you remember a long time ago, this commercial for, do you guys get McCain frozen cakes down there?
That
Does that
doesn't
ring a
sound
bell?
familiar, no.
Like McCain Sunday cakes or whatever? You don't hear? Okay.
No. We have John McCain. Does that count?
Well...
Anyways, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, up here, I guess there's a company called McCain, and they have frozen cakes, and they had in the 90s, they had this commercial for their Sunday cake, like Sundae cake.
Hey listeners, it's Chris jumping in here real quickly with a correction about the commercial that I'm about to explain. I say it's a McCain frozen cake commercial from the 90s. Incorrect. I don't know if this is like some Mandela effect happening with me, but it is a Nestle Sunday commercial from 2003. So here I am, keeping me honest and staying truthful. Just so you know, that's the quality that you can get at Failure to Franchise, at F2F Pod on all the socials. All right, okay, back to the show.
And the advertisement started with a bunch of nuns in a church, and the nuns were like sneaking away in the church to like go off into their own like little space to sneak the sinful McCain frozen cake. And they ate like fucking pigs. and like that chocolate sauce is like all over their face and all over their fucking like white, handkerchief, type outfits. And it just grossed me out. And I mean it stuck with me since the 90s. So I think we may have unlocked something here.
I kind of know what you mean. Like, it is like, I don't like being around other people who are like being like mess eating and have stuff all over their face. But then I do like really saucy ribs and really saucy wings. So it's something you just have to be conscious of. And I always do think it really is like something where I remember making this joke to Liz because like one of our like the first time we met in person, we went to like a bar to get food. We met there, and then we got food. And I remember telling her later like, I kind of wanted to try the wings there, but you can't get wings like the first time you're
absolutely not. That's like an after you canoodled date.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
to get the wings.
You're gonna see me at my worst when I'm eating wings. So.
I also, this might sound bad to the people with kids out there, and I'm sure one day I will have one, but I don't think it's cute when you let your baby eat spaghetti sauce all over their face and take pictures. I don't think it's cute. I think it's gross.
But what about when they call it peschetti sauce?
As an Italian Canadian, I must shame a baby.
Yeah. Oh, hey, speaking of you being a Canadian, I know we need to get into the show and into the movie and everything, but I've been, that I'm finally going to bring this up on Mike because this is a show with two great friends. We've stayed before. We love each other. We're the best of friends. Yeah. And yet I found out recently that you've been holding this secret from me, and I couldn't believe it. Now, because remind the listeners, where do you live? Where specifically do you live?
I live in Alberta, the province of Canada.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I recently found out that there is a town in Alberta called Vulcan, Alberta, which has obviously because of their name, they took it upon themselves to just be like a Star Trek themed town. Yeah. And here, you and I have been friends for years. You've known about my love for Star Trek for years. I certainly pester with you enough, and never once. And I've certainly talked about eventually visiting you in Alberta. And never once did you say, "Hey, by the way, we could go to Vulcan, Alberta, and check out all the Star Trek stuff."
Well, you had mentioned this right after we recorded last time, and I had said to you. First of all, I was dreading this day that you found out this information, number one. And number two, you're a fake fan because all Star Trek fans know this, so I was pretty shocked about that.
I don't know, yeah.
So you got to pull your little dork club. You got to ask them if they know about this place. But then also, if we are going to go to Vulcan, it's a one-way trip for you. So.
That sounds like that's just a threat, right? You were going to murder me there.
Yeah, we'll just leave you, whatever.
But I'll die happy. That's the thing, and that's all you can ask. Yeah.
I've never been there, but of course, it's very it's world famous. It's pretty crazy. So
Yeah, so my Star Trek road trip will be there, and then where they actually like the birth town of like Captain Janeway, where they actually built a statue for her. So
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
anyways, so anyways, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
You can tell we've had a couple of long weekends here because of those holidays. Trev had to deal with a heat wave. We're a little loosey-goosey. I was just away even this weekend, and it was a bit debaucherous. So I think, yes, bear with us.
Yeah. But that's, and you know, it's almost like we need a doctor, but too bad, because the doctors aren't passed. June was what the doctor ordered.
Nice.
As you mentioned, it's July, baby. We're moving into a brand new, well, not a brand new theme, actually one we do every year. And that is our 2-month summer surprise, where we have let the online generator, or online randomizer, I should say, pick our next 4 movies for us. And we are kicking that off with a movie that I said when we did this last time almost feels like kind of feels like a return to a previous theme from this year, even though it's not quite, but in that vein. And that is 1988's Action Jackson. Chris, why don't you tell us about it?
For sure. It is directed by Craig R. Baxley. He is primarily known for the A-Team TV show, a famous stunt coordinator and second unit assistant director for that show, including Dukes of Hazzard and The Predator, which is a major connective tissue for this movie. And it's funnily enough, we just did The Predator.
Yeah.
When did we do that? Like a couple months ago?
back in Thomas January.
Yeah, Thomas January, we did The Predator. So that's kind of funny. Wow. But this guy knows action. This movie in general involves kind of like a who's who of 80s action, crew and cast. So we'll get to that. The movie is written by Robert Renaud. He wrote Demolition Man, a movie me and you both really, really enjoy.
My favorite Stallone movie.
Also a different cut up here in Canada.
Yeah. Oh, you guys got the Pizza Hut cut?
Yeah, we got a different cut up here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Budget of... I don't want to go on another tangent.
That's fine. Yeah. We don't.
I almost did, and I was like, nope. Okay.
Look,
so
later on, we'll try and figure out how the 3 seashells work. You know, we'll get into it, but yeah.
The budget of Action Jackson, $7 million. Worldwide, it made just over $20 million. Honestly, a moderate hit for the time. It actually had come in third for the opening weekend. So for this company, Lorimar, that put it together, this was actually like a big deal for them because like most of the money they make is from TV. So this was like a reasonable performance for the movie and something that most people were thinking, oh, okay, this might get some more of these movies.
Well, they were a struggling company at the time too, right? They
Correct.
were like going through like a lot of upheaval, and they just had like Bernie Brillstein had just taken them over. So this was like kind of like a really important film for them. And then it does well. There's still issues with them that we'll talk about later. But you also have to imagine, we're just talking about like theatrical gross. You have to imagine this is a movie that, you know, and I've seen people say this, that I'm sure it did very well on video too afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's definitely become a cult hit. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And part of that is obviously just the name, right? It's a fun name. Action Jackson, you know.
It's such
I
a
think
fun
way more
name
people
that
know the name than have seen the movie or know the movie, right?
Oh, totally. It's such a fun name that I actually thought this was based on an action figure. You know,
Yeah.
it has that kind of vibe that it's like, you know, it's like a Masters of the Universe type of thing. Like this was an old 80s cartoon or something that came to life. But no, it is actually from the mind of our number one guy for the movie, our headliner, our starring leading man, Carl Weathers. So, you want to talk about him?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's because, you know, so I think the interesting thing about this movie and this discussion for us, right, is it's almost like we're looking at 2 failed franchises in a sense, right? One is the Action Jackson franchise. It's just on record that this was expected to be a franchise, and I guess later we'll talk about our theories, or not even theories, like what we know about why that didn't happen, because you said it was a moderate success. But obviously, there's no Action Jackson sequels. Now, some of our listeners right now are probably like screaming at us, like, you know, like, what are you talking about? There is an Action Jackson 2, and it's like, well, then we know you're German listeners, because,
And of course, you're screaming at us. We get it.
Yeah.
It's in the culture.
Because there was an unrelated Carl Weathers movie that was released in Germany later as Action Jackson 2, but there's no official Action Jackson 2.
No.
But I'd also say that this movie, do you feel like this movie also kind of represents the end of just the Carl Weathers as above title leading man experiment in a weird way? Like,
well, yes, because
Yeah.
this was like his first true leading man starring role. And well, here we are. And that's not to say that he doesn't deserve to be a leading
No.
man. And I think, like right now, let's just say, like I know we both love Carl Weathers.
yeah. I mean, honestly, have you ever met someone who doesn't love Carl Weathers?
No, and if they did, I think less of them.
Yeah.
You know, he's like that kind of a actor / human being.
Yeah.
Even in the research for this one, you know, I heard so many good things. Even like, you know, Bill Duke is in this movie, and they shared the screen in Predator, and you know, he was just saying such nice things about him, and saying like, you know, he's just a good guy, and it just feels like Carl Weathers always shows up. You know, he's well spoke, he's well liked. First of all, I'm talking the present tense, and unfortunately, we did just lose him about a year or so ago. He died at the age of 76 from heart disease. But he was always well talked about, and he had a great interview leading up to Action Jackson, which I want to play the clip, because he talks about how what is his feelings about being, you know, the starring role. Does he feel stressed about this?
Carl, your name is above the title, and I think even our audiences now are sophisticated enough to know that has a special meaning. Name above the title.
Yeah.
Is that kind of scary? Your first starring movie and all?
Oh, that's not scary so much, because I never, you know, my attitude prior to now was always that it was my movie, no matter what I was doing. That's the only way I've been able to deliver quality work. You know, it wasn't that I could take it easy because my name wasn't above the title, or because I didn't have greater responsibility than someone else in terms of how an audience was going to tune in to the movie, you know. Now the only thing that I feel is a real responsibility to all the people involved in the making of Action Jackson, and the people who've been behind Action Jackson, and the people who were on the bandwagon to make Action Jackson a movie that's well received. So for that reason, there is, you know, a concern that I go out and I tell people how much I enjoy the movie and how good the movie is and how much they'll enjoy the movie once they're in the theater.
And there you'll hear that he is like, well, not really. I mean, I stress because I don't want to let everybody down. You know, he's like, I've always given it my all. I've always realized when I'm in ensembles, I got to show up.
Yeah.
And I think that's evident in like every role. Like again, Predator. I mean, the Rocky movies. Even when he's in Commando with Arnold as well. Every time he shows up, I think you're happy to see him. You know, he's shown up in Arrested Development.
Tobias had recently hired actor Carl Weathers as a drama coach.
Do you see me more as the respected dramatic actor or more of the beloved comic actor?
Whoa. There's still plenty of meat on that bone. Now you take this home, throw it in a pot, add some broth, a potato. Baby, you got a stew going.
Yes, that's fine, but I would like to focus on my acting, Mr. Weathers. I did give you my last $1,100.
Let me tell you a little story about acting. I was doing the Showtime movie Hot Ice with Ann Archer. Never once touched my per diem. I go to craft service, get some raw veggies, bacon, cup of soup. Baby, I had a stew going.
And then, you know, of course, Happy Gilmore. I mean, he's actually hilarious. He was just recently in The Mandalorian and Grogu on the series, and everybody was jacked to see him. And you know, I think you're always just happy to see Carl Weathers.
Hear Carl Weathers. You mentioned the action figure thing before. Don't forget Combat Carl in Toy Story 4.
You know, okay, so that's I am going to go on a little bit of a tangent. That is the kind of the reason why I thought Action Jackson, because I went to go see Toy Story 5, but a few days before, I'm like, wow, I haven't seen Toy Story 4 since it came out. And I watched it one time, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just give it a go again. And I watched it, and then that Combat Carl showed up, and I was like, is this a play on Action Jackson?
Yeah.
Because it was like, even you told me we're doing this movie and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, tangent stopped.
Okay. We've probably, I don't remember for sure. I'm guessing we've talked about Carl Weathers at least briefly in our Success to Series Rocky episode.
Yeah.
because obviously when you talk about the Rocky franchise, you're mostly talking about Rocky. But I think it's very, very telling that like one of the immediate like, shows of Carl Weathers' strength as a performer and just how likable he was on screen and everything is that he is ostensibly like the villain of Rocky, right? And if you don't want to say villain, if that's too harsh a word, he's the antagonist. He's not, he's the obstacle for our hero to deal with in Rocky. Yeah. And yet he is just so captivating in that movie that like I don't even know. I wonder if Stallone was first of all, I wonder if Stallone was already thinking about a potential Rocky 2. And if he was, I wonder if at that point he was thinking like, well, obviously Apollo will continue being a character. But it's like he's so likable in part one, and even as like the antagonist, that like he comes back in part 2, and part 2 still he's the obstacle again, right? But the movie like refuses to make him unlikable, right? He's still and then it's like with Rocky 3, it's like let's just keep it going. Let's have him now become Rocky's best friend, and it's just like Stallone instantly recognized like the magic sauce of this franchise is Apollo is almost as important as I am. Right. And in fact, like to the point where his death is the instigating factor for part 4. And, I'm not a Rocky 5 hater. I like it more than others do. But I will say the lack of Apollo Creed in it, I think, is a big part of the reason people it's not the only reason, but I'm sure it's a big part of the reason people aren't as fond of that one.
Oh, sure.
Like, yeah, it's like you've lost like the second best character in the series. And he carries that franchise in a way like right there with Stallone. Like it's a great character. It's an iconic character. I think people love Apollo Creed almost as much as they love Rocky, to the point where the natural way to spin that series off was to try and think about like giving like it being about his son, and like living that legacy and that shadow. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's so good that even his aura spawns a whole other trilogy. Yeah. Like of course Michael B. Jordan takes it and runs with it, of course, but it's really on the backs of what Carl Weathers did, Yeah. And I'm not even really sure he gets enough credit for that or got. Would you say so? Because, I mean, of course his character's gone, so it's hard. But I feel like it would have come up in interviews or something and been like, well, like, how do you feel about this new trilogy? And
yeah, I remember he was like there on the red carpet for the first one. Obviously, there was like the promotional photos of him meeting Michael B. Jordan, and like, father and son together. But I mean, instead of answering a question on that, let's just frame this in whole conversation about this. Instead of saying does he get enough credit for the Creed franchise, I guess the question that this episode can focus on is, does Carl Weathers get enough credit in general? I mean, now we're saying that he's like so loved, and I think that's true, and like everybody likes Carl Weathers.
What made Carl Weathers such a superstar during that era?
Well, he was the Arnold kind of our culture.
Huh. He was the Black Arnold.
Yeah, good-looking guy.
Yep.
Incredible body, muscles and stuff, muscular, smart, so he had that superhero kind of feel to him.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah. I mean, he played a super cop. He wasn't a regular cop. He was
no, he was super.
He was super.
and good people, too.
But, like, I think one of the things I want to talk about this episode is like, what happened? Why is he? You watch a movie like Predator, and you said like one of the most iconic moments in that movie is like, of course, the moment where him and Schwarzenegger like do like they grab their hands together, the two like ripped arms,
Oh yeah.
Dylan, you son of a bitch. What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils? Huh? Had enough?
Make it easy on yourself, Dutch.
Okay. You never did know when to quit, huh?
Damn good to see you, Dutch.
What is this fucking tie business?
Oh, come on. Forget about my tie, man.
He holds his own in that movie with Schwarzenegger, holds his own in the Rocky films with Stallone. Why was he not able to join those ranks? Because there is an alternate reality where Action Jackson hits even bigger, or just the fallout of it is different. And Carl Weathers has the career that Wesley Snipes had, I think, and that just didn't happen. And it is strange because there's no problem. Like whatever we're going to say about this movie, I don't know how you feel about it. You don't know how I feel about it. I don't think either of us are going to be like, Carl Weathers fucking sucks in it. Like that's not the issue.
No, we're not. We won't say that. No.
Yeah, like he's great in everything. So
do you
what
think this
happened here? Yeah.
Do you think this? Do you think I just went on about all his great qualities, right? And it's something that I think we look up to, and we wish he was still around to keep exemplifying that, right?
Yeah.
Do you think he has a lack of an edge to him?
He's like too likable.
I know that sounds really strange to say, but I'm sort of getting to the point that I don't want to say his range is not rangeful, but like we just did a movie, we just did Cobra, right? Yeah. And Stallone, his contemporary, has a real edge to him in that movie and throughout his whole career. But Carl Weathers is like, he's a really believable good guy. But is he a really believable good bad guy?
I mean, was he ever given the chance to show it,
Well, other than being sort of, the antagonist of Rocky. But then after that, they immediately changed it to, we're buddies.
Yeah. And like I said, they don't even play him. That's why I had to back off a villain immediately when saying they don't play Apollo as like a piece of shit in the first one either. No. He's cocky. He's like, but I mean, that's the whole thing too, is he even realizes he's cocky, or he's gotten to the point where he's kind of embarrassed by himself. Mm-hmm. So the movie already has some sympathy towards his character. It would have been interesting to see him like go that route, or if not a villain, at least a Cobra-like character, right? A character with, as you're saying, more edge, which he never really got to do. So yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thing to think about, but it is just strange because, and I hate to say this, but it's worth. I mean, we've brought this up before. I'm sure there's a level of just Hollywood racism that falls into it too, and that's why I said the thing about Wesley Snipes. I'm not trying to be reductive by making that comparison. I'm instead kind of alluding to the dumb Hollywood thinking that I'm sure was probably prevalent in the eyes of some studio heads and executives that like, we only need like one black action hero in Hollywood. And it was kind of like, we got, and like Wesley Snipes was kind of given that like role in like the 90s. But that role could have easily been Carl Weathers, and Action Jackson seemed like it was like priming him for that, after being right there with Stallone and Schwarzenegger in some iconic movies. It felt like there's no reason he couldn't, that couldn't be like a trio of stars right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard some of his contemporaries call him even like the Arnold of the black community. You know, almost like he had a responsibility. And I don't know. That's an odd question. It's tough when an all around good actor, good person, guy who makes good movies never becomes Arnold and Stallone. He doesn't become great. Like I understand why Dolph Lundgren didn't. Like I understand like, half his career it's hard to hear what he was saying, but go listen to our Masters of the Universe episode to hear that. But it's hard to unpack because it's not like he didn't have a career, no. like he was in so many things. Like I'm looking here, he's got 80 credits to his name as an actor alone, 17 directorial, 5 producerial. Like he's been around. He's done so much work. And in all sorts of genres. So like even when I said his range isn't rangeful, that's untrue because of all the stuff he does. But I think there was a point where he did lean heavily into comedy. Maybe that's why. He does have really good comedic timing. Like, again, hooking up with the Happy Gilmore like thing, and then he's in Little Nicky, 8 Crazy Nights. Like he does kind of hitch his wagon to Adam Sandler there for a bit. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure.
And even his stint on Arrested Development, that was like his idea. Like they wanted to have him come on as like Tobias's acting coach, and he was the one who then said to like Ron Howard and oh God, the guy who does Arrested Development's name is escaping me, Mitch whatever. But man, I'd probably remember it if not for seasons 4 and 5. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but, exactly.
But it was Carl Weathers who said, I'll come on and play myself, but can I play myself as really cheap? Like can that be the joke? So like that was his idea, and like what a great idea,
Yeah. It's a tough one, and I don't know if there's an answer, but and we're not gonna figure it out.
No. Well, the other because that's the other thing that's worth talking about this movie that makes it a more confusing question. Like you said, we're not going to figure it out. But again, think about the people he had in his corner, right? He had the support of Stallone. He always had the support of Schwarzenegger. But then even with this movie, he has the support of probably the most important action producer of the 80s and early 90s, Joel Silver, which I want to talk about Joel Silver too. I'm sure you probably do too a little bit.
Sure.
Because I feel like, his imprint is all over this movie too, in big ways we'll talk about, obviously. But I wonder if young movie fans know the name Joel Silver still in the way that like my generation did. Because, I think like people still know Jerry Bruckheimer. Like the Jerry Bruckheimer name became like synonymous with action. But like there was a period like when I was younger where like the name Joel Silver was the one you first thought of for action. Like was like pre Bruckheimer, this Joel Silver kind of as a producer defines the 80s for action. So he, if you look at his career, he's the producer of 48 Hours, Streets of Fire, Commando, Lethal Weapon, Predator, this film, Action Jackson, the same year as Action Jackson. He also does Die Hard. He does Roadhouse. Of course, he does the Lethal Weapon and Die Hard sequels, and the Predator 2, Last Boy Scout, Demolition Man. Like he just his 80s and like 90s run.
And then 10 years later he does The Matrix.
Yes, yeah.
and changes filmmaking for almost forever with that movie. So yeah, totally.
Also kind of weird though, right? Though with him too, like The Matrix is like you could say like maybe that's I don't know if it's his peak, but it's like one of the most important movies he ever does. And then he keeps working after that. But would you say it's a little downhill after The Matrix if you look at his filmography? Like
everybody needs a falling action. Okay.
Yeah.
Like everybody, at least he got.
He would know that too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, no. Gothica wasn't that good.
No.
But then Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. No, actually, I take it back. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is there, and then he does, of course, The Nice Guys, the movie we talked about.
But I mean, but we're not talking about huge financial hits here, right? Like,
that's a good point.
He has some hits still. He does the Sherlock Holmes movies. We talked about those last time when we talked about Dolittle. He does the Robert Downey Jr. ones. And like he's got certainly movies that are acclaimed that we like, things like Speed Racer and things like that. But it's just, he never quite reaches those highs of the 80s and 90s again.
Sure.
He was just untouchable at that point, And he was also one of those guys who, this is an era I love to talk about a lot. I've probably brought it up before in the show. We're like in a pre-internet era, and even in like a pre-DVD special features era. If you were like a huge film fan, there used to just be these like awesome like half-hour making-ofs for the upcoming movies on HBO. And I think there's just a bunch of them for the stuff like the Lethal Weapon films and a lot of the movies he produced. And he was like a very funny kind of like I'm sure as a Hollywood producer, he's probably got very big asshole qualities. I know I have heard some stories like that, but he was a very boisterous, funny personality in interviews too. So he was just someone like in my head, I still like just associate Joel Silver with like action. And when you're watching an action movie and the opening credits say produced by Joel Silver, you kind of know the style of action you're going to get too. Yeah. But you also just feel like you're in capable hands. Like that's how I think of him.
Totally. Well, again, this whole idea spawned because Joel Silver, launched all those franchises we talked about, and he is working with Carl Weathers on the Predator set, and they're just kind of shooting the shit. And he wants to get Carl Weathers. Again, he's a producer, right? And he sees a great talent, and he's like, you know what? I can make a fucking franchise out of this guy. And Carl Weathers says this: a creation that came about when I was doing Predator and talking to Joel Silver, who loved blaxploitation movies. Joel said, well, why don't you put something together? So during that time of shooting Predator down in Puerto Vallarta, I created this story and came up with this guy, or at least his title, Action Jackson. And Joel found a writer, wrote the script, and that was it. We got it made. And that writer was Robert Renaud, who had worked with Joel Silver on additional work with the Lethal Weapon series, and he wrote the draft in just over a month.
Yeah.
So, honestly, from start to finish of this whole movie, it was like 18 months from the pitch of Carl Weathers to Joel Silver to it being released. So this thing was kicked into high gear like right away because, again, Joel fell in love with the idea. Carl Weathers was ready to go, and he's about to hit, some more with the Predator. And, Sharon Stone, a young Sharon Stone is in this movie, pre her fame.
Vanity, who was a big deal at the time.
Yes, Vanity. Okay, so I am not super familiar with her, but she's like a Prince protege in a lot of ways, right?
She was a Prince protege, and then like left Prince. He wanted her to like. It was kind of a thing where he created this like girl group. They were called initially. They were like called the Hookers.
Oh, nice.
And then I think I'm trying to think what they ended up being actually called. Oh, Vanity Six. He actually gave her the name Vanity. Originally, he wanted to call her Vagina.
Oh, nice.
But
a lot of Vagina.
Well, he wanted it like it was going to be spelled as vagina, but it was going to be pronounced Vagina, and she refused. So her real name is Denise Matthews, and she's like, I'm not going to be Vagina. So then he decided to on Vanity, and the honest reason he called her Vanity is because he saw her as like a female version of him. So that was like his vanity. So she was his vanity. So he called her that. And so she led this girl group for him. Their big hit was Nasty Girl. I'm sure you've heard that song.
Yes, I have heard that song.
Yes. So that was her huge hit. And then he basically wanted her to keep being his protege, and she was getting a little antsy, and she was like, I can't just keep living under Prince's thumb, and she was supposed to be the lead in Purple Rain, and she decided, no, I'm out of here. So that's why Apollonia gets that part instead. And she walks away from Prince, and she starts a little acting career. But yeah, I mean, she was like a huge like singing star and just sex symbol when I was a kid. And I knew her not just from like Action Jackson, but she was also like the female lead in The Last Dragon, a movie that was on cable like every day when I was a kid, and that's a movie I still love. And then she's in like a great bad movie called Never Too Young to Die. So I'm not surprised you don't remember her, because her moment of fame was like short-lived, but it was really intense while it lasted. And then unfortunately she had some kind of personal problems later in life, and she died really early too because of some of those issues. And we will talk about those issues simply because they actually do tie into the movie in a strange way, but I don't want to like harp on that too much, but it is like she's like to your point, she was a huge star for like a short time.
But this movie really contains, I said it before, but the who's who of 80s action people.
Well, that's the thing too. I wanted your point about how it got going so fast and was done in just 18 months. A big part of that is because it was so easy for them to just roll right into production, because you could call it calling in favors, or you could just call it, this is the Joel Silver thing, right? Of like kind of having like a house team, and kind of every bit part in this is, if you are a huge fan of 80s action movies, and as I said, Joel Silver produced most of those, you'll go like, oh, I know that person, and probably you know them because they're also in Die Hard, or they're also in Lethal Weapon. People keep popping up from the Lethal Weapon and Die Hard movies, and you go like, oh, this is the Joel Silver connection here, and the director, Craig R. Baxley, like he was probably, setting up a stunt on the set of Predator and heard them having that conversation. It was just like, I kind of want to direct, and they're like, all right, great, we got our man. It's just like, it all comes together so fast, because this movie is basically like the Joel Silver All-Stars movie.
Oh, great. Yeah, great way of saying that. Yeah. For sure. There's a lot of crossover, like you're saying, but wasn't it funny that Devorah White from Die Hard is in this, and he played Argyle, the limo driver in Die Hard, and then he played a valet in this one. Yeah. Quite the typecast for that year. So named
Clovis and Argyle. Great character names that year for him.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. I mean, that's the production. So I think it's time. Oh, actually, I did want to say this one thing. Well, no, I don't. I'll say it in the review.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about Action Jackson right after this.
Why do they call you Action anyway?
Have to catch a cab. Now I got you.
He's a cop who carries no weapon.
This Jackson is so vicious, we don't even let him have a gun.
Yeah! He's a maverick who answers to no one.
You might pull that boy's arm off.
He had a spare.
He's a man who's no dog.
I bet I can make you change your mind.
And all action.
How do you like your ribs?
The indefatigable Action Jackson.
The one big fella.
Some action.
You haven't learned your lesson.
Teach me.
You sure could teach Mr. T a thing or two.
So allow me to lay my healing hands upon you.
1, 2, 3.
When it calls for action, he's the one to call.
If I was to hit you again, you'd probably slam my little body right through that wall.
I was thinking about it.
Carl Weathers is Action Jackson, and action is on the way.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
By the way, you never asked me what I was having for a drink.
What are
you? It's a Budweiser Zero.
Oh man, come on.
Well, I didn't want to. First of all, I don't like drinking beer at home anymore.
Yeah.
So I buy the Zero Budweiser, but then also the Zero Corona.
Mm-hmm.
And the Zero Corona doesn't have the nice slurp sound for the music. Okay. And it was funny because I'm sitting here, I opened it up, I cracked it before we started recording, and I was like, fuck, I forgot to crack it on the mic. So anyway. All right. The plot. Due to the use of excessive force, Lieutenant Jericho Action Jackson has been demoted to police sergeant. What's worse is the father of the man he roughed up, Detroit auto industrialist Peter Delaplane, has declared war on Jackson, framing him for This Budweiser Zero went to my head. Framing him for a horrific crime. On the run from his fellow officers, Jericho teams up with a drug-addicted singer named Sidney Ash to take Delaplane down once and for all.
I'm glad you shared the plot for Action Jackson, even though I would say the plot is probably the least important element of Action Jackson. I don't think anyone watches Action Jackson and cares about the plot. I'm not sure the people who made Action Jackson cared too much about the plot. Mm-hmm. In fact, I've read that the people making Action Jackson were confused about the plot while they were making it. And we can certainly talk about that with the movie. But I know this was a first-time watch for you. Obviously not a first-time watch for me. This is a movie that was like, I wouldn't say it's not The Predator. It's it's not Predator. Sorry, I don't want to throw the on there. It's not Predator. It's certainly not Rocky. It's not the other like huge Joel Silver movies I loved from the 80s and 90s. This one didn't quite have that play. So maybe I'm guilty of what we were just talking about before. That I didn't latch onto this movie in the same way I did at some of the others. But it is a movie I remember seeing on cable when I was younger and enjoying and revisiting a few times over the years. I mentioned earlier that this movie reminded me of a previous theme we did, and that was me alluding to our Misfired Cannons theme. We did all those Cannon films, and kind of our whole thesis during that theme was that whether the movies were good or bad, there was just something really enjoyable about the practical nature of like 80s action, and that's why we think a lot of people still kind of latch on to loving these 80s Cannon films. Mm-hmm. This is obviously like better than most Cannon films, I'd say, on a certain level. But what I'm going to like mostly praise it for is that same distinction. What I think is like really fun about visiting Action Jackson now, a couple things. First is the performance of Carl Weathers. So get that out of the way. Like, I love Carl Weathers in this. I think he's doing a great job of like hitting that blaxploitation vibe they're going for. He hits the one-liners great. He's very likable. The action scenes, he's like very capable. He's like super handsome on screen, super captivating, super dynamic, awesome. And then the action itself is pretty great, and it is full of that like very practical stuff, and it's very clearly action designed by a stunt and action coordinator. Oftentimes when you ask one of those guys to direct a movie, it turns out pretty well. And I do want to give Craig R. Baxley his props here. I think he does a great job with the action. The movie gets a little long in the tooth, especially in like the second act. The mystery is pretty confusing and not very captivating, but if you are a fan of this era of like 80s action, these Joel Silver movies, it's just a blast seeing all these familiar faces pop up. It's a blast seeing this movie like pretty effectively I said like hit that blaxploitation vibe. We also did like that Shaft month where we looked at the two modern Shafts. This is like a better blaxploitation tribute movie than either of those two movies, I think. I quite like this movie. I think it's like a really fun, nostalgic blast. It doesn't hit the highs of the best Schwarzenegger, Stallone stuff, so maybe that is the issue here. Maybe it's just not quite good enough to like really announce the arrival of Carl Weathers as like their equal. But I think it is good enough that I watch it and go like, man, it kind of sucks that like this didn't work in the way it should have, and that we didn't get like either more sequels to this or just giving him more opportunity to make other movies like this, because I think this is a really fun movie.
Yeah, and I'm not even gonna be around the bush. I'm like basically right there with you.
Yeah.
It is like really good, and it the action is really good when it happens.
Yeah,
I
it needs
think
like one or two more big action scenes, especially in the middle.
Well, this too. It's like the movie's called Action Jackson, right? And I like the idea of starting the movie with him already demoted and at a desk, right? I think that's interesting on the page. However, if I am paying money to go see Action Jackson, it's a little upsetting that it doesn't take until halfway through the movie for him to like really do anything,
Yeah.
And what he does is awesome. Like, I wrote it down. He's like running after a taxi cab, and it's like shockingly he's like keeping up with it.
Yeah.
And like the cab tries to hit him, and he like jumps on the roof, and he's holding on for dear life. There's a bunch of car explosions behind him. He punches through the window, and then he eggs the car on to come hit him, and he like jumps over it, totally clearing it. Like it's total like cartoon shit,
I think I've referenced before a film critic I love, Vern, who used to write for Random Cool News, and just Outlaw Vern has his own site now, Outlaw Vern, but he like primarily reviews like action movies like this. But I always remember him writing when he wrote about Action Jackson that scene. He's like, it's the first ever cinematic car chase where one of the people forgot to bring a car.
1000%, right? Yeah. So it's like it becomes schlock, right? But it's fun in the vein of canon films. Now, what I will say is, it feels almost like imitation canon, and what I mean by that, it feels like a hodgepodge of canon actioners, right? But then also you got your mainstream Hollywood crew here.
Yeah.
So it's a very odd, very silly, very uneven movie, because you start to get the feeling of a canon movie. And please, listeners, if you haven't go back into your podcast app and go look at our Misfired Canon theme month. We really go into depth about the company and what makes those movies special or terrible. So there is a distinction. But I feel like sometimes the action is almost is it too glossy sometimes? Like I'm not really sure, but it feels like a little bit of a mismatch of something that's really great, like a car going into a house, up some stairs and around the corner. And then like a dumb fist fight where a guy's got his balls cut off, in a jar. So this one's an odd one because I definitely liked it, and I think it is worth watching, and we'll get to the question later about if this deserves sequels. But I feel like it comes off as more like pretty standard action in the realm of the Joel Silver wave, just like you're saying.
Well, and that's kind of like a little bit of the charm of it today, though, too, right? Is that it hits on so many of those action cliches that now I like because they are cliches. Like the cop getting yelled at by his captain consistently, and the captain is Bill Duke, so it's always great to see Bill Duke. The whole thing. I love this in like Seagal and Van Damme movies of this era too, and it's just one of my favorite things in action movies where other characters keep talking to you about how badass your main character is. So you have other characters reminding us about how, Action Jackson, he's got a Harvard Law School degree. Oh, he was a star football player, right? Like they talk about him like so much before he arrives on the scene, like setting the scene for them. That's like a cliche that I love. This movie is just kind of full of that, which maybe made it seem kind of redundant and repetitive to audiences at the time. But when you watch it today, I think you just kind of like go, it's like there's like a level of like. Yeah, there's like a level of comfort to that almost,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I love that stuff back then. I missed that.
Totally. But even like again, like what I mean about even I want to go back to the Hollywood versus canon thing, right? What kind of made canon special about the action is you almost felt like people were going to die, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm pretty sure in one of the movies we watched, in Invasion USA, somebody maybe died on screen, which isn't something to laugh at. I understand that. I'm not a heartless psycho, but canon was notoriously made for cheap and fast, and well, yeah. Anyway, you can go listen to those episodes. But here you have like true professionals. So even though there's like an over the top yacht attack and an explosion on that boat, or like a crazy attack beat 'em up in the beginning in that office space that is sort of reminiscent of Invasion USA, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was watching professionals.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it takes away the charm. And maybe it's just because we went on such an in-depth conversation and dissection of canon already, but that level of danger is maybe not exactly there in this one.
I hear you. I do think there still is a level of excitement of just seeing that like practical action again. And
of course.
And I know you're going to agree with this. I mean, you talk about professionals. I'll tell you, like, one of the biggest professionals on the set was clearly they had a very professional pyrotechnic man, because
big time.
This is an explosion-filled movie. The explosions are great, and like and Craig R. Baxley, coming from stunt coordination and action, choreographer background, he knows too to just let the camera like linger on those explosions and like get the best of them. So this is a great, like, if you love like explosions and if you love squibs, so like this is a great movie for that. Yeah.
So I was real concerned about that, but we had special effects guy, Aldesaro, and his guys, just the best in the business. I mean, people who not only are incredibly professional, but who really care about your safety. And then I had Craig Baxley, who directs the picture, who's been involved in stunts for all his life, right? His first time directorial on a feature, and did an outstanding job. This man has been involved with every stunt in the world, stuntmen for all his life, and all this special effects stuff. So with a group like that giving me tremendous support and protecting me and assuring me of the safety, and with rehearsal, this is not something that folks should run around trying, or kids should ever try. Fire is uncontrollable and extremely dangerous. And it was extremely close at times. But without that, the credibility of our movie, we wouldn't be talking about it if it didn't have you with that kind of tension where you said, boy, this looks scary. That was intent. We had to have that kind of stuff, as well as some of the other crazy things we did in this movie, to get your attention, to give you a rocket ride, to get you at the amusement park and keep you there on the roller coaster.
Okay, Craig T. Nelson is in this movie.
By the way, Craig R. Baxley plays Craig T. Nelson. Come on,
I know. To make Creed v. Coach Dawn of Justice.
This is another 80s action. I don't know, another 80s action cliche. I actually just recently wrote about this in another. I watched an 80s ninja movie, which I love,
of course.
Starring Sho Kosugi, Rage to Honor, or Rage to Kill. Sorry. But one of the cliches of like 80s action is you have like this amazing like physical specimen as like the hero, and then like the villain is just like some old white guy, and they're like, we gotta like have the old white guy seem like a physical match, and they never quite pull it off,
No,
but
never.
God bless them for trying. God bless them for making it, like, for pretending even for a moment that Craig T. Nelson could fight Carl Weathers.
I know. It almost looked sometimes like they were waving a dummy leg.
He's like, I just can't get it up that high. I'm sorry.
It didn't even seem like it was a double. It was like, okay, get behind the camera. We can see your face, your side profile. Let's wave this dummy leg in front. It looks like it kicked Carl in the face. Yeah, there is really no real physical threat.
No, but that aside, what'd you think of him in this?
I actually thought he brought some like gravitas to it.
Yeah, like you fucking hate this guy. He's scummy to the max. Yeah,
he's very, very scummy, and he's very, very evil. I haven't said exactly what he does, but we'll get to it. And it really shocked me to be like, holy shit, I didn't think it was gonna go there. But he not a good guy. And I love a movie where I absolutely hate the villain.
Yeah.
So this really works for that. You really like Carl Weathers, and you really hate Craig T. Nelson.
Well, that's good too, because it kind of is. carrying a heavy load too. Like you need to hate the villain because you're not necessarily following what the villain is doing in the movie. And you kind of, I don't know about you, but I kind of get to a certain point in the movie where I just stop caring.
Well, the movie forgets about him for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, and like ultimately when it's revealed, we can just say it's not like a huge spoiler here because again, I don't think anybody would watch Action Jackson, like, oh boy, I can't wait to see the mystery of Action Jackson. But like, you just find that this guy like runs a car company. He has a particular kind of car that he's made his fortune on selling, and he's just trying to like murder the Detroit Auto like union members so that he can get more control of the union, so he can get like better like deals on his car. That's it. It's a movie about murdering uncooperative union officials, and it kind of takes like a long time for the movie to like finally reveal that. And by the time it does, you're like, that's it. And it's also just like, I don't know. It's a shitty like bad guy plan and like doled out pretty poorly narratively wise. So
and also like
it's just saved by the fact that he's such a scumbag that you want to see him get his.
No, I agree, and I did find it obvious though. Like it starts with a montage, the Detroit auto industry, right?
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay. And then he owns a car company. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like he's killing the union people. Like, he was just, it's right there in front of you. So when you act like it's a mystery, when you don't need to, especially because he's so obviously evil too,
Yeah.
There's multiple times in the movie where Action Jackson is like going up to him in public or at social events and calling him out on his bullshit. And he's just so obviously mean and hiding something. So yeah, but I do like Craig T. Nelson. I love Mr. Incredible,
Oh yeah.
So it's cool. Did you know they're making the fourth, or the third? Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
Brad Bird's not directing.
I know.
I don't even think he's writing it.
No, I don't think he's involved. Yeah, I think he chose to do that Ray Gun movie instead. Yeah.
Crazy. Full of tangents this episode. No, this is a good action movie. I do think it's split in two. I haven't really said that yet. I do feel there's like an unevenness to it, but I think it's split in two. And I'm gonna spoil a big moment now. Okay, any listeners that want to tune out and then come back after watching it, but Sharon Stone is in this movie. A young Sharon Stone, obviously, right before she hits it big. Actually, the same year she does Above the Law with Steven Seagal. So Craig T. Nelson kills his wife, a.k.a. Sharon Stone.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie completely forgets about Sharon Stone and why that is... I don't want to say bad, but like, I guess emotional for Action Jackson. And I didn't really like that. And it becomes a vanity movie and a weird, like they switch to a new female co-lead and it was very abrupt for me because in the beginning, first half of the movie, Sharon Stone has an inkling that something's maybe going on nefarious with her husband, but she doesn't want to believe it. And she obviously is taking a liking to Action Jackson. And then circumstances bring them together where Jackson wants an opportunity to take the husband down. And Sharon Stone's character, like, kind of believes him and seemingly figures it out that her husband is a very evil guy. And then she's immediately killed, which sets off the next stage of the movie. But I felt like Action Jackson forgot about her. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody really cares that she's dead. Nobody even asks Craig T. Nelson's character during the whole rest of the movie, like, man, your wife, what happened?
That's the weird part about it. That's the thing I kept thinking about, because like when we meet Sharon Stone, he's introducing her at like a party where he's being named like Detroit Man of the Year or whatever.
Yeah,
so she's obviously a very public figure as well, right? The fact that he murders her, and like I like it as a like a darkly comedic moment when he murders her and his like men walk in and they're just like, they see it and they're just like, well, yeah, whatever, you know, like that works because then you realize like, oh, he sucks and all his people work for him suck, you know. Mm-hmm. But then you do wonder like, oh, how exactly does he explain this to like the public?
He doesn't have
like,
to. Nobody asks him.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever asked, oh, where's Patrice? Oh, we heard she died. And then he's like, yeah. Like, nobody says, how are you feeling? Like, he never has to pretend. And I think that would make him even more nefarious and scummy if like one scene, I don't like to rewrite the movies, Trev.
I know.
And like one scene he's has to pretend that he's so sad about his wife being dead, and then like cut to next scene and he's like banging a hooker, you know, or vanity, you know, and like it's just I there's no scene like that, which drove me crazy.
I mean, her presence in the movie though is primarily she is there to further sell how horrible this guy is, right, and to make you hate him even more.
And maybe I'm taking Sharon Stone baggage in. Because
you are, and that's what I was about to say too, right?
Because
you're thinking of her like she's obviously much more famous today than Vanity, right? So you're like thinking, but at this time, no, right? Like Vanity is like I think people would go in and be like, when are we getting to Vanity, right? At this point, hey, you want another like canon connection? At this point, to most audiences, I bet you most audiences thought Sharon Stone primarily as she was the female lead in the Alan Quartermain movies that Canon made, which we didn't have to do because they made 2 of them. And she had been in Police Academy 4, you know, so it's not, she was not a big star at this point, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
And
that's
she's,
fair.
And she's still a couple years away. She Total Recall 1990, and then of course Basic Instinct 92. So she's still like 5 years away from from really hitting huge. So her like role in this movie is it's a role that actually is used a lot in like blaxploitation movies and stuff, right? The early victim to further sell how terrible the villain is. And it's supposed to make you feel like Vanity is in even more danger. If he's willing to kill his wife, his mistress is clearly no issue for him, right?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of the screenwriting thought of it. Like, oh my God, like Vanity is really in trouble here because he is willing to kill anybody. So I guess that's the thinking. And on a like the movie, you kind of know like the movie has to like have a romance angle. Like I do want to talk about the very end of the movie, but it's, you know, the Vanity like character, I guess it makes more sense for like Action Jackson to end up with her since she is just the mistress but doesn't have the baggage of being the wife. I don't know, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and I guess like you said, it's got to propel the narrative that Vanity's in a lot of danger. Now, Vanity is an absolute smoke show. You know, like she's absolutely gorgeous. You see her for 2 seconds. I paused and I like had to look, you know, where she was in every other movie she's been in. You know, I was like, who is this? But she plays, you know, a drug addict, right? And you know, it's kind of interesting that she was a drug addict at the time of filming as well. She wasn't like, using coke during shooting the movie, but like as soon as the cameras were done and she was home or anywhere she had a major cocaine problem.
Yeah, and this is by her own admission, by the way. We're not speaking out of school here.
Oh yeah, like it's right here. Here, I'll just read the quote. I didn't know if we needed to read it, but yeah, I probably should. Her words: "I was a real closet user when we were shooting the movie. No one knew what was going on, and I wasn't using while I was working, but as soon as we were through the day, I was into the stuff. I really felt funny playing an addict and also knowing I was one. Maybe that helped me decide that I needed treatment. And unfortunately, at the age of 57, she died from kidney failure, most of it because of a history of cocaine use. So she actually OD'd in 94. So her performance is an interesting one because I don't want a damsel in distress. But if I want to feel she's in danger, I need her to like care that she's in danger, and I don't think she does. And because of her reaction to stuff, where she's mostly just like kind of laughing about things and kind of taking it so flippantly of what's going on, the stakes are like negligent to me anymore. So I do think that is an issue. I loved seeing her, and I think she is a pretty good character, but I don't know if I liked that she was so, you know, naive to everything.
I mean, I'll take it even farther. Like, I guess I'll be the jerk here. I don't like making fun of actors,
especially dead ones.
Especially dead ones, and especially dead ones who I did like have a huge crush on when I was a kid, you know, and also did have a tragic life and a tragic story. But I will say, I was watching this movie and I turned to my wife and I said, "Is Vanity like kind of bad in this? Like, is she the bad performance in this?"
Trev, and it was she's no Sharon Stone.
It was shocking to me to go and like look at the reviews for this movie at the time, and this is something we talk about the canon movies as well, right? Is that like this is again like you don't know how good it is when you have it. Like the critics fucking hated this movie at the time, like just another stupid action movie.
Yeah, Roger Ebert gave this 1 out of 4, and by Roger Ebert, we love the man. Speaking of not speaking ill of the dead, but like we love that guy, but sometimes he's got it wrong.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah, he's always fun to read even when he's wrong, but he's got it wrong a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the reviews at the time kind of said like, well, Carl Weathers he does not prove himself as a star. And I watched this movie and go like, what? Like he definitely does. And then a lot of the same reviews are like, but Vanity, she's the real deal here. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, I kind of think she's like the worst performance in this movie. And I think part of it is like what you said, like it's what she's being asked to play. It's like that whole first 15 or 20 minutes they're together, her character is like high out of her mind and is not like being responsive to the danger she's in, and she's just being so flippant and annoying. And I get that that's like story-wise it's supposed to be like annoying to Action Jackson, it's supposed to be frustrating him, but as an audience member I was also getting frustrated, and it made me like not like her performance and just be kind of like, the movie has like, can we get her like off screen? Like I love looking at her, but like she's really slowing down the propulsion of this movie here by being so lackadaisical.
Trev wanted to shut up Vanity. I get it. It makes sense.
You wanted her to die early and you wanted Sharon Stone around. So,
hey, I swapped the roles. That's all I'm saying. No, I am right there with you. And I mentioned Roger Ebert because he said exactly that. He said, Weathers is a good actor in supporting roles, but he believed he doesn't have the necessary charisma to be a leading man. Roger, fucking figure it out. And then he says he's outshined by all his co-stars, and Vanity's performance is the movie's one redeeming merit.
Now, one thing you just remember...
Sometimes he's a horny guy.
Yes, exactly. You know what I was going to say. Something you have to remember about Roger Ebert is he sees a hot woman and he goes, this is the one redeeming merit. Yes.
Yeah, big time. But yeah, that was pretty shocking to see that so many of the reviews of the time did not like Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
I don't either. Like he's like like the one-liners are all very like effective. Like I said, like I think he's doing a really good job, and it's a tough thing too, right? To be like a modern action star, but also like echoing that like silly 70s blaxploitation vibe. Mm-hmm. Now maybe that is the problem, right? Like that's something that you and I watch now and respond better to because we're just kind of more used to like tonal shifts and the genre tribute element of it. But like you were kind of getting at this a little bit in your initial thoughts. I will say one issue this movie has is it is having a really hard time figuring out how serious and how silly it wants to be.
Big time.
And it kind of does wildly ping pong back and forth. And he has to like bear the brunt of a lot of that. He is a character that is sometimes supposed to be very dangerous and very intimidating, and other times they play him very comedic, and he can do both parts very well, but maybe that just confused audiences at the time. And maybe that was the issue of like where they were like, well, we don't see him as a total action star because he plays a lot of this like more comedic. I don't know, like maybe that's the only thing I can think is like maybe what they were like butting up against, because to look at this and say he doesn't have charisma is just wild. Like I don't understand that.
Well, maybe it's this too. Maybe you're hitting on something here, because there is a lot of one-liners in this movie.
Yeah.
And they're said very casually and very low-key. There's not a ton, save a few, that are like big look at the camera, wink, one-liners. It comes off as a more like a natural comedic script in a lot of ways. It's almost like a 21 Jump Street type of a thing. Like the jokes are happening, and maybe people weren't ready to hear jokes. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like there's the moment, there's the great one-liners when, he tells a guy to chill out and then he fucking shoots a
now wait,
flamethrower at a guy.
I'm going to say that he actually commits an ultimate action movie faux pas there. You don't say chill out and kill a guy with a flamethrower. That was like, what are you doing here? You got to kill that guy with ice, or you say like, feeling hot under the collar or something, right?
No, for sure. But what I'm getting at is like, that's like the joke, It's like, but maybe it is a hat on a hat.
Yeah.
And that's what people aren't responding to, because when he said it, I did laugh because I was like, oh, okay, like he's total opposite. like I see what they're going for, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And then of course the barbecue. How do you like your ribs? That's probably the best one. And especially the transition between the guy in flames to the actual ribs being cooked on the barbecue.
Great. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
I think the best one. I think my favorite line in the whole movie is when he's getting yelled at by Bill Duke at the beginning, and they're talking about like the thing that got him demoted in the first place, and they're talking about how what his whole demotion was, like what happened before this movie started, is that Craig T. Nelson's character's son was like a rich white kid who sexually assaulted a woman, and Action Jackson brought him down and was like very violent in apprehending him. And they're talking about like how rough he was with the kid. And of course, then Delaplane like used his clout and his influence to get Action Jackson demoted. But I love when the boss is like, "You nearly tore his arm off," and Jackson goes, "He had a spare." That's the best line.
That's a good one. That's good.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bill Duke, I wish he was in this more.
Yeah, of course. Wish he was in everything more.
He's only got a couple. I was actually surprised to hear that he's still alive, if I'm being honest. He seems like one of that type of actor that I'm like, oh yeah, we lost him a couple years ago. But no, he's still alive, which is great. I'm not throwing it out there to the Matrix, okay?
Which also begs the question again, why isn't he also in every movie we saw this year, like more, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. What is he doing?
Just
being a senior citizen, I guess. Okay. He's in this movie. And I'm going to have a little score horror moment here, okay? So the score is produced by Michael Kamen.
Yeah.
And
Herbie Hancock.
Herbie Hancock, but I'm gonna do what I do best and only talk about the white man, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Michael Kamen.
Tell us more about how Sharon Stone should have had Vanity's
I will, yeah. And Arnold should have been Action Jackson. Okay. Michael Kamen is like Joel Silver's guy, you know, during that era. And he has some really good scores. This one sucks. I'm not into this one.
Okay, this is another. I'm glad you brought it up because I might have forgot to say this. Another thing that's like not helping that tonal imbalance this movie is why is Michael Kamen scoring a comedy like at all times during this movie, like in a goofy slapstick comedy, but during action scenes and during like serious shit, like you said, the moments where like, and I know you can say like how silly is this scene where like the villains have Action Jackson like they're holding him like hostage and they're gonna cut his balls off, but like that's actually there's like a level of menace to that.
Yeah.
But like somebody tell that to Michael Kamen.
Yeah, it became a Naked Gun movie. It was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
No, it does not work. His score is really bad. And again, he makes some good stuff. And I'm actually going to say one connective tissue one that I think people forget about is he did the X-Men score, the first movie from 2000. And people like to always think about John Ottman's score from X2 with the like everybody likes that theme. That's cool. But I actually really like Michael Kamen's score in X-Men 1. There's like a really nice motif in that one that I really enjoy. And the reason I bring this up is because Bill Duke is in X3 The Last Stand.
Yeah.
As Bolivar Trask.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's what I was getting to 5 minutes ago.
Which I believe is the same character Peter Dinklage plays in First Class.
Correct.
So,
but it's a timeline. That's what happened, right?
I get something really went wild in that timeline.
Hey, they made Bill Duke a white guy, but then they took away his height. So it's a Lord giveth.
Where was the TVA on that one? As you were asleep at the wheel on that one. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go very far to like find proof that like Michael Kamen is usually good. Like even with like other Joel Silver stuff, his Die Hard and Lethal Weapon scores are great.
It's awesome.
But he was.
This one sucked.
Yeah, this one's bad. Yep.
It's bad. Why this thing failed? Because we liked it, but at the time, critics did not. Okay, so let's put that to the side. The critics kind of came for this movie, but then also the studio, Lorimar, went bankrupt.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of actually the reason why this movie, the sequels didn't get made. The movie or the studio, Lorimar Film Entertainment, goes bankrupt, and they actually sold all of their rights to their movies to Sony, and then Sony sold the whole library to Warner Brothers, and right now Warner Brothers and Larry Ellison hold the rights to Action Jackson, and well, it's probably it.
It just got lost in the shuffle, right?
Totally.
At the time where they would have been working on the sequel, that's when all this shit's going down. Where like Lorimar is selling off to someone else, and then they're selling more of that, So it just didn't have any momentum. Would it have got a sequel otherwise? Was it successful enough? Who knows? That I feel like probably. I
feel like if Joel Silver could, he would.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
This turned enough of a profit that I think there's a strong argument to be made of saying, we can probably make Action Jackson 2 again for just $10 million,
Yeah.
And if every time we can just double our gross, back in the era where doubling your gross actually did matter, it wasn't the 2.5 multiplier back then or more than that, right? Because you just needed to double it. Nobody would have been upset back then to make a movie for $10 million and make 20, so they could have done one of these every year and probably got away with that, but it just got lost in the shuffle.
Now, do you think it deserved to be made?
I do, and I'll tell you specifically why I want to see more Action Jackson sequels by the end. And like I said, we talked about what our issues with it were, but we also talked about like what works and how the action is fun when it happens. The movie ends really well. We've said like. Mm-hmm. You do want your movie to go out on a high, well, except for the very end. We're like, can I just say, again, let me just bring this up.
Please.
If we're into spoilers here, the movie does end on a very odd note to where Action Jackson has been protecting Vanity's character, Sydney, throughout the whole movie. She is a junkie, as we've acknowledged. She's a junkie because Delaplane got her hooked on smack so that he could make her like more pliable for her to be his mistress and the singer at this like lounge he owns. But she's a junkie. She keeps trying to get away from like Jackson as he's protecting her to go score her next hit and everything. Mm-hmm. And then she finally realizes that like, oh, he's telling the truth. Like Delaplane is trying to kill me. And so she's teamed up with him. She's basically just a damsel in distress at the last part, as you said. And then at the very end, he says something about like, I can't remember exactly what he says about. She's like coming on to him and he's like, I don't know if I could like date like a junkie. And she goes, what about it? Like an ex-junkie? And he's like, what? And she's like, oh yeah, cold turkey. What? You can't just say I'm an ex-junkie. I went off hit cold turkey when your last hit was like yesterday. And he like immediately accepts that. He's just like, okay, great. And he gets like romantically involved with this like woman who's involved in this case that he's now working on that he's, has to go file paperwork on like right this moment. Very, very strange ending.
Well, she was like breaking his balls for the past 3 days of not fucking her.
Yes.
She's
true.
like, I don't see much action in this Jackson or whatever she says, it's like, I think at that point he just, what are you going to say? Hey?
And she is Vanity, so I get it.
Like, who has that much power, Trev?
Yeah. And he's just like, he is just like waiting. Just give me like a 24-hour window where she's not on heroin. Like I will take it. But what I was going to say about the ending, what I really like about the ending that I think would have been fun to explore in sequels is I love that by the end of this film, he's assembled this like little gang. Right, and I thought that was so fun. We're introduced to a character named Kid Sable, played by Chino Fats Williams, who like is this like old black man who runs a motel that they go to stay in. And we find out that he's the second best boxer in Detroit history, like after Joe Louis, but nobody remembers him. Mm-hmm. And he gets like a really fun like action moment at the end where they obviously use a clear like leg double for his little juke and jiving, but fun, right? You have a great running bit, probably the best like recurring comedic bit in the whole movie is the young like mugger who's picked up by the police at the beginning, and the police are scaring him by telling him how he's going to have to answer to like Action Jackson, and they're telling all these like wild like stories about how Action Jackson's like dad is Sasquatch and all that stuff, right? To scare him before he even meets him. And then when he finally sees him, he just faints, and then he keeps running into him throughout the movie and keeps like fainting, but he becomes like part of the gang at the end.
Yep.
You also have like, I said, there's like Clovis, the Deborah White character. He's just assembled this gang of helpers, and it's like, oh, that's fun. I want to see more of that in like the sequel, right? Like Action Jackson and his like almost like his Baker Street regulars, like if he was Sherlock Holmes.
I even liked his barbershop informant, D. That was so funny to me.
That scene is funny, but it's only funny to me because we just talk about like the mystery makes no sense, and it's almost like the screenwriter at a point is like, I don't know, man. Let's just introduce a hairdresser who for some reason knows everything.
Totally. But it's like, if you know hairdressers, one of my good friends she's always telling me that everybody just says their life story, and it's nothing is held back. So it was just so funny to me that this random barbershop girl just knows the plot of Action Jackson.
Yeah,
and
better
just
than he knows it.
Yeah, and just monologues it to him. And I don't think it even cuts. It's like one shot, one scene, almost like a pickup. But it was really, it made me laugh. I thought it was funny that the mystery becomes just a monologue. So
that's actually a comedic beat you could go back to in every sequel, right?
Yes.
Where she's always the one who tells him what's going on. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
No, this one was, I agree. I would have liked a franchise here. I would have liked to see another one. Again, I just want to see more Carl Weathers. I had mentioned he was in the Mandalorian and Grogu show, and when I watched that show for the first 2 seasons, like when he was cast in it, I was like, holy shit, like Carl Weathers is in Star Wars now? And it was like, it's always fun and it was always nice to see the guy. Yeah. So yeah, big loss of him passing away just recently. But like you said in the beginning of this whole episode, I'd be hard pressed to find anybody to talk bad about the guy, especially personally. You know, if we could talk to Roger Ebert, we'd have to fucking slap him around a little bit. But I think, yeah, he was just a good guy and a good actor, and has a legacy to prove it. Action Jackson or not, the guy lived an incredible career and iconic status.
And I know he had a couple other movies like in this vein. There was like one called Hurricane Smith, and then there's whatever the fuck that movie is that Germany called Action Jackson 2. But like, I'm glad this one exists just to just say like he did have that one movie where it's kind of like his movie that was like a theatrical release that kind of was like a big deal, And I said it is remembered, even if it's primarily remembered for the name. That's kind of like enough. Like he already has like 2 iconic characters and like franchises that aren't his own, but it's kind of cool he at least has this movie like that's part of his legacy. On that bent, I can't believe this is like my last note that I wanted to get to. Don't you think it's funny that on a screenwriting level that the story I've heard the story told too, that apparently the name came from when they were like on the Predator set and they were like coming up with everything. He talked to like one of the stuntmen and was telling him about the movie. He's like, would you want to work on it? And it was like an Australian stuntman, and the Australian stuntman said like, oh, if you can get that all together, man, I'm Action Jackson. And that was like his way of saying I'd be there. But like Carl just heard that and like loved it, and like that's where the name came from. That might be apocryphal, but that's what I heard, right? But you have the name, right? So okay, we got a great name for the movie, Action Jackson. And then someone's probably like, well, okay, then if his name's Action Jackson, clearly that's enough, right? So it's gonna and he's like, no, Jericho Action Jackson. Like, if your name is Jericho Jackson, you don't need action as like a nickname. You already have the coolest fucking name in the world.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, that's Action Jackson. I do hope if you haven't seen this and you're into that type of 80s Joel Silver not Joel Silver but Joel Silver style action movie. We named so many of them, so if those rang a bell, check it out. I think you'll like it.
How many movies do you get to see where a guy, like I said, a hero drives like a Ferrari like through a mansion? That's pretty great. Thank God that mansion had very wide hallways.
So stupid. Like so dumb. I couldn't believe it when it was happening, and I thought it was hilarious. So that was really, really cool. I also liked giving a hand-to-hand fight with Sonny Landham. Hey, played Billy from Predator. They have actually a pretty sweet fist fight that's really like pretty intense and close quarters, and it was really cool. I thought that choreography was awesome. So sometimes it doesn't have to be the Ferrari through the mansion or Carl Weathers jumping over a car. Sometimes it's just a really cool hand-to-hand fist fight gets me. So.
Oh, and I also before I forget, I forgot to mention that the other great member of his gang is like the big like Vanity's like big like bodyguard, that's a fun character.
Oh yes,
and I like that he just becomes like a good guy at the end and joins up with them. Yeah.
Even when Jackson is like trying to beat him up.
Yeah.
And like he's just like stone, like he's just like you're thinking about throwing me through that wall, aren't you? Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, even like you said the thing, if you're a fan of like the Joel Silver stuff, here's the last thing I'd say to people is if you've watched Die Hard and Lethal Weapon like 100 times and you haven't seen Action Jackson, then go throw this on, because if nothing else, you're gonna have a fun time spotting all the people, right?
Totally.
Like Al Leong, the great Al Leong, who's like one of the for my generation is always like we just think of him as like the primary like villain, like fourth important villain in a gang. Right? He is always the lackey, and not surprisingly, he was one of Delaplane's like bodyguards here.
Yeah.
Delaplane hires this like assassin squad called the Invisible Men to like carry out his hits, and they tie up Action Jackson. At one point, and then they're all like, threatening to torture him. And I'm looking at one of them. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy in Hans Gruber's gang who like poses as the security guard in the lobby in Nakatomi Tower. Right? They're just it's just playing like spot the Die Hard or spot the Lethal Weapon cast member, and that's a fun game.
Totally. Yeah. It was cool even seeing Robert Davi, playing against type in a lot of ways. Hey, he was kind of like a scared
good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good. Okay. Action Jackson. Fun start to Summer Surprise 2026, where we take a random generator and or a random picker, I guess, and tells us what to what the fuck? How do we do this? I've lost my mind.
We feed in the films that we don't otherwise have set to themes, and an online randomizer picks them for us. That's the easy way to say it. Yes.
Thank you, Trev. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, and next episode we're looking at Car 54, Where Are You? From 1994. Okay, this might be a tough pill to swallow for me. I don't know what this is, but I've been told by you last episode it's based on a TV show. But it makes it extra special because we will be having a guest with us. A newcomer to Failure to Franchise.
First-time guest. Yep.
Yeah, first-time guest. So that'll be fun. After that, The Green Hornet, 2011. Another TV show, by the way. We never even mentioned that last time. Don't use that tone.
I'm just saying it's not. It's not only a TV show, but yes, you're right.
Cool it. And then capping off Summer Surprise with World War Z or World War Z, if you're from up north here.
Ugh,
shut up! You shut up! You shut your whore mouth. Very controversial because we don't know what's happening, but we're shooting our shot here.
Yeah.
That will not get the sequel that is supposedly being promised. Presently.
You know what? I'm not even calling it controversial because I would say even if it gets the sequel, even if it does get a sequel, it's not going to be the sequel they were trying to make for like 20 years. So it's going to be something else.
Sure. Yeah. Not quite 20 years. I know you don't do math, but
by the time they get around to it,
yeah, Brad Pitt would have beat up another child. Okay, that's not. Oh God. Okay, rate, review, whatever you do, follow us at F2FPod. That's at F2, the number 2, FPod, and all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. A star rating would be great. And join the tribe and hit the subscribe. That'd be awesome of you to do for us. And yeah, excited. Summer Surprise. Always a blast. Always a blast.
Well, anyway, I think whatever happens with you and Rocky, there's going to be Action Jackson too. Want to make a bet?
I don't want to bet it, but I know on February 12th is Action Jackson Day. That's the day I'm living for right now.
Right.
That's the thing that's going to make me happy.
Carl, you were worth waiting for.
Thank you very much.
So happy I finally got a chance to talk with you. Continued good luck.
Thank you very much.